All right, good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Aquas and Victor, and today we are anchoring the podcast on business, the financial confession. So, on this podcast, we're basically going to focus on talking about how you can navigate your businesses, how finance is an important aspect of anyone's life. And right here with me on the studio, I have my very good friend, Mr. Patrick Eyang. Say hello to you.
Hello everyone, it's a
All
pleasure
right.
to be here.
Thank you so much. And also with us, we have a very good market analyst, David Moses, is also here with us in the studio.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
All right. Okay, so guys, right now we have come to talk about business, finance, economics, and how this would affect the life of everybody, in the country, in the world at large, right? And today we are actually focusing on the topic of navigating your finance in the current economic climate, right? So what I mean by this? We have several kind of economic theme, economic climates. We have the periods where everything are going fine and where everything's are going well. And then we have the period where things are in shit, like everything is really, really fucked up, right? So, but right now we want to understand, I want us to like understand what is the current economic climate? Where do we see ourselves? If we can hear from Mr. Patrick, you're an economist, so it's safe to say you have a lot to offer us. So where do we see what economic climate do we find ourselves right now?
A beautiful question, I must say. Currently, I would say the climate, our economic climate, I would not want to say we are in a state of recession. Jump down to COVID-19, we came out of recession.
Okay.
And then it was projected that we were supposed to resume a rapid growth.
Okay.
During the recession, we know there was a lot of stagnant economic activities because of people were not able to go and do their normal businesses as called. But then, because of election, it was projected for 2023 to hit the band going. But then I would say because of election, economic activities are slow wine. We are not in recession, but we are in between the peak and we are not up there at the peak, but we are in between the down cycle, recession period, and the peak period, the middle. Why would I say so? I said the effect of election had already slowed our economic activities. Yes, a lot of investors, a lot of business owners are not sure how the election will take hold. Okay. Where it swings, if it will stay with the correct incumbent or move to another, Nigeria is known for one thing, a lot of unstable policy. So you wouldn't want to put your money in an activity where you know that policy will just flick. Yeah. So it has affected business activities in the country overall. And then I would say the effect of the monetization of our currency by the famous CBN governor has also taken a good downturn on the economic activities. Why? During those periods where there was cash crunch, a lot of people, informal sector majorly now, were not able to run their activities the way they would have done. And as such, it had tremendous impact on their businesses. Many businesses had to put on hold. And if you look at the ripple effect of all that in the economy, it played a lot of impact on it. You see that as at first quarter, the projection growth we are expected to have as an imagination. Okay. Imagination. We didn't hit that figure because of those activities. But looking beyond it, I would not say we are in recession. Recession, you say no growth. There was growth, but it was a slow growth.
Okay.
So many factors dampen that growth. But now that the election is over, we'll move.
Okay, so I have a lot of follow-up questions with that. But before I hit that, I'd like to hear from Mr. David Moses, because I want to also look at not just Nigeria in context. Of course, we're going to deliberate more on our current situation, our current economic climate in the country, and how it affects every business people. I love some points you brought up. But I also want to look at it on the global scale, the macroeconomics. Mr. David, if you can tell us, what do you think on the grand scheme of things, intermarket, intramarket relationships, how do you see ourselves? What economic climate are we experiencing globally?
All right, thank you very much. Very good question. I think it's a very good way to set the pace going. Yeah. Looking at the global markets and where we are right now, I think it's very good for us to look at where we're coming from. From the year 2015 to 2019, where we had humongous startups coming up in tech space. Okay. With anything tech, you have a boom of cash. Massive movement, cash movement. You have a lot of transactions going on, and tech really opens the global economy allows businesses from across the world transact easily. So it's the involvement of tech in finance, really affected the global economy, leading to more or less like inflationary states, across the world. Before now, or before 2018 or 2015, you can't just move a stockpile of money easily as you can today. Today I can send someone money in China using a cryptocurrency or whatnot. So looking at how people themselves on low scale, are adopting, are interacting with the economy, you'll see that there is more or less inflation that came into play from way back. So I'll say where we are globally, I'll say we're in a concluding inflationary stage where we have a huge bubble that's been created by tech. It seems like it's never going to stop, because we also have like many tech ideas coming up. We have NFTs, we have different ideas coming up. It looks like it's never going to come to an end. But I think we've gotten to a stage where globally, where there's a need for a recession. I think we're moving in from an inflationary economy where we have prices of things, hitting the all-time high. We have, even precious metals hitting all-time high. Although we can see, if you look at the global economy, we look at the interplay, we see the prices of oil. I think it's kind of shows that we're not really as much as a producing global economy as we were 4 years ago.
There was a drop. There was a drop in production.
There was a drop in production from price movement on oil. You can see that it's more or less like production has reduced or dampened. So I think we're moving from a stage of inflation in other markets to back into hard labor, back into productivity. It's not going to be an easy play. I think there's going to be a down period of recession that will come in, like my colleague here said. So there's going to be a down period, but I think for now we're still in an inflationary stage, and we're yet to see recession coming.
Okay, so I agree with you on that stance, because I would always say we know inflation to be the increase in prices of goods and services generally, right? And we've seen recently, not just in Nigeria, we've seen in UK, I think they took the hit the most. We saw in other part of, even in US, they are when you go to the grocery stores, you don't get items to buy, and then the ones that are there, the prices are like double, right? We've seen this happen several times. And if we are standing by the definition of inflation, it's safe to say we are in an inflationary environment, we're in an inflationary economic climate. But what led us to this point? What brought us here? Because for my understanding, right, it all started with the energy crisis. It all started with shortage of labor in food processing. And then even the pandemic had its effects, because there was no transportation, there was no exports to different countries. So there was this backlog of delivering goods. There was this backlog in manufacturing, and when the economy even opened up for all these activities to start, there was shortage of labor. Now there's a ton of reasons why that came up, but we had that shortage of labor. We had the energy crisis due to the Ukraine and Russia war. We had this shortage in energy, and which led to, I think that was one of the catalysts that brings up inflation. And talking to you, Mr. Patrick, you saying we're going to leave that climate. Do you see that happening anytime soon? That we are, given that we are at the peak of high prices, poor policies, we don't even have labor up. We have a lot of vandalism. We have a lot of shortage in so many things. Even right now that we have drop in crude oil production in the country, how do you think we're going to navigate? Or how do you think, what's the possibility of us leaving this economic climate?
Oh, good question. Beautiful question. Right now, as my other colleague has just said, currently we are in a state of inflationary gap, and I don't think many moments from now we will leave that in this quarter or the next quarter. But then, be it as it may be, not globally, I'm speaking from this aspect now, Nigeria economic perspective. Okay. Before the election, we listened to the manifesto of our candidate, and then before now, we know that one of the reasons of Nigeria being in this state is we've been so solely dependent on one component of the economy, which is our oil sector. Okay. Oil sector. Even when we had this Russia-Ukraine war, and many countries were hitting too much on it, making it from the surge price of that. You will notice that we really could not do that because of why? The subsidy and everything. But apparently, I listened to the manifesto, like I said, of most of the candidates, and most of them are saying that they want to move the nation from a consumption economy to a production economy. Doing that is as good as saying that they want to diversify the economy, make it a broadband process where we need not to depend on one sector alone. So if they can do that, all sectors, like you said, all sectors working interval, you'll see that labor will have a lot of people at hand, labor from the demand pool. And by the time you have all those sectors coming together, labor doing their aspects, household growing, and I just believe that if that is in place, it will bring down that inflationary result and move us forward.
Okay, so you want to go? Yeah, go ahead.
I think I would like to add to it. It's more or less like when you talk about what we can do. Like for example, Nigeria. I think what's most important as well is our image as a country.
Okay.
One thing you notice about developed nations is they have huge investors' confidence.
Yeah, true.
So we cannot downplay our investors' confidence as a nation, where we have to really look inward, where we have terrorist attacks, where we have people are scared of going out to work, or maybe people are some part of the nation rioting. We don't want a case of of war or mayhem where a new president is sworn in and
it's not the choice of the people.
It's not the choice of the people.
Yeah, true.
So we have to really, really curtail those factors too, because like it or not, where there is no peace, there cannot be any transactions. There cannot be good transactions for the economy. So I wanted to add that to what you said.
Okay, so that's a beautiful one to chip in, and I like the fact that you guys are focused on Nigeria. Let us bring it inwards. Let's bring it home. Let's talk about Nigeria. I want to bring out two excerpts from Bloomberg. They posted recently. And one of the posts that I would like to talk about is the fact that our oil production dropped, right? So our crude oil production. Okay, let me just read directly from Bloomberg. It said Nigeria's crude oil production declines to 1.25 million barrels per day in April, right? So based on the data from the National Upstream Petroleum Regulation Commission, Nigerian production was down month on month by 17.7%. This is one leg of the information. Now, looking back to the Bloomberg also posted, right? And the headline for this article says Libya's oil chief seals output hitting decades high by end of the year, right? So what does this mean? We are seeing our oil production decline, and we are seeing our foreign partners or foreign, let me use the word, competitors increasing their oil outputs, projecting higher oil output increase, and then we're not seeing anything. We're not seeing an upside on our own. Of course, surely this decline in oil production is going to affect our FX. We're not going to enjoy the benefit of high inflow of FX, and then our currency might probably suffer. So looking inwards, looking at Nigeria, how did we get here? How do we get to the point where our oil production is dropping? How do we get to the point where we have several restrictions when you want to make international transactions, when you want to gain access to FX? You have restrictions. You don't even get easy access to FX. How did we get there? Because all these things put together is going to drive inflation. I mean, let me put it in a very layman terms, right? Let's say there is an importer. All he does is, let's say he imports. Let's say he imports. Let me use the word goods. Let me use general terms, right? Okay. He imports goods. Or let's say he imports machineries for production of rice. Now, when we had good access to FX, exchange rate was low, say exchange rate was at 350, 400, give or take 500, right? And maybe the cost of him importing these goods was let's say roughly 1 million. I'm giving a rough estimate, 1 million. That was the cost for this importation of goods. And then he sells at probably a profit margin of 200,000. So 1.2 million, it gets to the hands of the user, right? And then inflation, this shortage in FX comes in, and it now costs him 1.5 million to import the materials. And for him to sell it using the same profit margin of 200,000, 1.7 million, something that costs the end user 1.5 million, 1.2 million before, is now costing him 1.7 million. You're seeing that whatever is being produced is going to also reflect on the cost of each item that is being produced. This is how inflation creeps in. We are asking, are we leaving this economic climate anytime soon? or are we still going? Is it getting worse? I want to understand, how did we get here? What are the things that drove us down to this point? Let's hear from him.
So for me personally, I think it was not a today movement. Yeah. It was not a today movement. From trend, you would see that, like I said earlier, being dependent on oil was part of the reason we got to this place. How it is so clearly, and I'll expatiate on my part. Okay. Then on FX, we'll try to explain on the two issues. So before prior to the discovery of oil, we were doing well. We were exporting our product, our agricultural product. We were known for that, not just in this part, over there. So they come to us and get agricultural product. So when we discover our gold mine, which is oil, basically they made a direct shift of paradigm from agricultural sector to oil sector. Yes, it was a cash cow. It was fetching in money. Everybody wanted it, and they were doing it. So for that reason, all attention dovetailed into oil. Yes, we did that to an extent. Yes, despite the fact that the revenue from oil exploration wasn't properly used, if I would say so. So if that used that money to create a refinery and ensure our refineries are working, I'll say yes, the impact will not be this way. So when you said Libya had high, and then we had a down. So many reasons would play into it. One of them is security, just the way you said. If you look at Niger Delta, you discover that when I say infrastructural gap, you discover the amenities in those areas are quite low. You see a lot of militancy operations, and they don't give reasons for people to do their work judiciously. You see them a lot of oil vandalization. It is going on rapidly, and it is because of what? If you look at the environment, there are no basic amenities. That was why I said the revenue generated from oil, the ripple effect is not fair. So when you see that, it's going to affect the production of oil. Imagine total barrel of oil we tend to lose through oil vandalization. It has been happening for ages. So, like I said, it brings me back to why FX had gone up. If you have good refineries running in this year and in this part of the world, you discover that we export our oil for them to refine, and then we pay money for them to bring it back to it. So you can imagine that high cost in doing that. So if you look at so many factors that played into it, like I said, we solely depend on oil. Immediately the oil this thing was discovered, there was a direct shift of attention. So if the economy could go back the way it was, where the financial, the entertainment sector is working, agricultural sector is working, manufacturing sector is working, even the oil sector, they are working together, you will see that there will be a tremendous impact until that. Okay. We are not leaving this soon.
Okay, I think you pointed out a lot of points. I want to hear from Mr. David Moses. Please, let's hear from you how we got here, what you think led us to this point.
Okay, yeah, I think he gave like a whole detailed explanation to how we got here. I agree with him on that. To your question, I think the only way from here is down. I think it's more of a case like we need to go down there before we can go up.
Right.
Because inflation in Nigeria is clearly a must for us before we can think of moving out of it. Because I think the FX rate is only going to go up. Looking at policies that the incoming president to be inaugurated, it's talking about removing subsidy, which subsidy removal, there's surely going to be inflationary effect, ripple effect on removal of subsidy. But I think the only way forward after we go down is to diversify, like you said. Subsidy has been almost like it has been a punishment to our economy. Our economy has suffered drastically. Our economy has been beaten, it has been battered. When Jonathan talked about subsidy removal, it was insulted and all that. But today, the very government that blamed Jonathan for wanting to remove the subsidy, they're the ones coming back to it today, because that's the only way out for us. We can't keep paying unrealistic debt. So I think the idea of a Dangote refinery was a very smart one, and it's also going to help a lot in terms of us coming out from that shithole. But I think the only way is down from here, because FX is not going to be good. We're going to have to
focus internally. Yeah, that's true.
So and the revenue for subsidy right now, if they can be channeled into agriculture, channeled into tech, there are massive opportunities in tech that Nigeria can explore. Talk about artificial intelligence, talk about even turning some businesses operation into tech operation, automation. So I think that's the only way out for us. Other countries are doing it. Countries who are not even suffering such climate conditions. Talk about Australia. Australia, they have massive investment to tech. So I think we need to diversify the revenue from subsidy removal.
Okay. So thank you very much, Mr. David. I think you guys pointed out a lot of things that are very helpful, very insightful, and yes, we're in a very high inflationary rate climate, and from what you said, we should still expect further downturns, because currently our inflation rate in Nigeria is 22% inflation rate. That's a lot. I mean, anyways, so moving forward, if we are to expect anything positive in the future for this country, I believe there are certain things that would have to happen, certain things that have to be in play. But before we dive into what can be done, what we should look forward to, I'd like us to go for a commercial break, and when we are back, we'll get into the deeper, juicy aspect of this podcast. Stay with us, guys.
Yes, you understand? Now, coming to the issue you raise, I don't think it will cost us, or whatever it costs us in doing another election, if this one is cancelled, will tantamount to what Nigeria will gain as a nation if we have sanity in this country. We have a lot of money. A lot of money has been going down the drains. We are trying to establish a leadership that Nigerians will be proud of, that will take Nigeria away.
Welcome back, guys. So I think that was a very brief commercial, and we are back. So we are still talking about the current economic climate and how we're navigating through it, what to expect, and how to be well prepared for what is and what is to come. So of course, still with me on the studio is Mr. Patrick Iyang and Mr. David Moses. So guys, welcome back. So welcome back. It was an interesting session earlier on. You guys said a lot of things, and it was very, very insightful. So right now we want to talk about seeing how things are, seeing where we are, how we got here eventually. What do we expect? What should the regular household person, how the families out there in the country, what should they expect? Okay, now they're aware that we're in an inflationary economic climate, and things are quite really expensive, and what exactly should they expect in this economic climate? Let's say from you, Mr. David.
All right, thank you very much. I'll say what an individual should expect in such climates as this. We've spoken about where we are headed. From where I said, I think we're headed into a phase of heavier inflation. I think inflation and recession mixed together. Wow. When we talk about the removal of subsidy, so I think the highest concern or form of concern an individual should have is personal finance. Personal finance,
definitely.
It's critical because in this kind of period, debt financing is going to be difficult. When you talk about debt financing, people may not be able to, manage debt easily in this period.
Yeah, because things get higher.
Things get higher. So if you're going to be depending on debt, or it's going to come at high interest rates with such economic play happening. Yeah. So I'd say we should focus more on, going into businesses that are highly liquid. You should not, when you have such plays in the economy, you should not be investing in, let's say, illiquid businesses.
Yeah, that's something that will tie your asset down, your cash down.
Yes, because cash is king right now.
Yeah, definitely.
Cash is king, and you shouldn't be investing in. I don't pay for advertising real estate, but trust me,
that is another bubble.
Exactly. So if they are telling you to buy a land somewhere in one bush and you're going to tie that money down, trust me, in this kind of economic period of climate, you need your cash to work for you ASAP. You need something that can give you a return in, something that can generate returns daily, weekly. So you need to just be more rapid to finance. I think that's it for me then. I think also we shouldn't downplay a form of employment as an individual. Everyone is going to need to get busy.
Yeah.
We shouldn't just blame it on the country, that because the country needs us to get busy.
Yeah, we actually are the country.
Exactly.
Yes.
So if sectors are opening with this events that might happen, the removal of subsidy, if everything's happening, all at once, we'll still need people to take on jobs. Jobs are going to be opening in. We saw Dangote Refinery, for example. They're going to be employing a whole lot of people. We need people to take such jobs. We need already existing businesses to try to expand, and create more jobs. I think that's very, very crucial to the survival of an individual.
Okay, so that's really interesting. Before I come to you, Mr. Patrick, I want to buttress on something you said about cash being king, right? Because if we're talking about what to expect in this economic climate, we should expect higher prices of goods and services. We should expect demand, and most of those demand will not be met, right? And when this happens, prices keep going up, and because there is no easy flow of transactions of businesses, we should not expect cash flow to be there. So I think it's something that the household people should be mindful of. Yeah. There's going to be business restrictions. There's going to be business delays. Prices of goods and services will be high. It's something you should expect. So when you see it coming, we should expect it. Let's hear from you. Buttress more on the points.
Oh, fine, beautiful one. Okay, because of the inflationary gap, we've seen policies made by the CBN governor to curb such inflationary gap, thereby increasing MPR rates, monetary policy rates. And by so doing, what he has been able to do is he has been able to increase our interest rates. So the cost of borrowing is high.
Wow. Yeah.
And once the cost of borrowing is high, it dovetails into so many things. As a business owner like he is now, to get loan from bank, it becomes more expensive. And then once that is expensive, it affects production. Once it affects production, all other...
It affects everything.
Exactly. The price of things goes up. There's no production. So the available one, they sell at higher price. Inflation still stays.
Yes.
Then it affects what? Income. The workers have what? A low income. What it boils down, it then dovetails to the society, and you see a lot of social unrest.
Wow.
So with that policy, I still don't think it's the best policy. With that policy, it have a ripple effect on the economy. People still expect higher price. It won't change now. It's not changing anytime soon. People should still expect a little bit of cash crush, availability of cash. We'll still have that difficulty in it for now. And then some other things you just see. But like you said, it gets worse and then it gets better.
Yeah.
Yes. But then we are looking, hopefully, and we're optimistic that by the time we hit rock bottom, we might not need to hit the rock bottom before we catapult to the top.
Right. Hitting rock bottom, sometimes we could capitalize on the fact that when we bounce off that hit, we should propel higher. Okay, so beautiful one, Mr. Patrick. Beautiful one. We've talked about seeing cash crunch. We've talked about higher prices. We've talked about decline in employment due to low productions and manufacturing in the economy, and we've talked about high rate on servicing your debt. Right. So I think this is very important for our viewers to know, because when you are aware of these things, you don't just take certain actions. There are things you don't just do because you're aware that okay, this is there. If you want to rely on loans, and then you are, like Mr. David said, you take a loan and then you invest it in an illiquid business or an illiquid asset, you're setting yourself up to fail. Sure. Right? So that is not something you want to do right now. And that brings us to the next point I want to talk about. Now that we understand where we are, now we understand what to expect in this current economic situations, looking forward, how do we navigate? How does one navigate this current economic cycle? You've talked about, investing in liquid businesses. You've talked about cash is king, having something that gives you good cash flow on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. We've talked about, managing your personal finance. We've talked about understanding how your debt rate and the MPR is affecting everything totally, and how production. We've talked about all that. How do you navigate this? What do you tell them? Okay, don't put your money under the pillow. Do you tell them, okay, cry for help or kill yourself? No, how do we? Let me hear from Mr. Patrick. How do we navigate this?
Good one, Mr. Victor.
Thank you.
From the macro, he just spoke away from the micro aspect, which is from the household aspect. Yeah. Where he talked about personal financing, managing it properly, from investing, holding cash, put your money in liquid investment, not illiquid investment. Then if you look at it from the macro aspect, the economic aspect, I think there are some policies that should be made that will reflect on all this. Then policies for business indigenous business owners. I think what they should do is they should be a form of tax holiday or a tax relief program for them, those that have locally owned business. By doing that, it would reduce the burden on them. At such, they will not carry that weight of saying that, okay, there's high cost of borrowing at that rate, and then you still need to pay tax on your businesses. So for indigenous, and doing that alone, it will aid a lot of growth of a lot of indigenous businesses, and that is what we need. We need local production of goods in this economy. So we need fiscal policies that will cut across low businesses in the informal sectors. We also need favorable monetary policies from the government. I think we've had a good high run of MPR rates, and I think it's high time they start looking into it. I don't think it has done more good to us since it started jumping up. Okay. And to be honest with you, the more it goes up, the more inflationary gap goes up. I think the last time was 21.9 before it entered 22.0. So I think they should look into that policy. They should make the business environment enabling more. The business environment ease and enablement. That the ease of doing business is quite easier and affordable to even down to the layman. So across it can help support and grow their business. Aside that, government should also make access to finance, credit finance.
Little or no
I'm telling
interest,
you. So with little or minimum interest, and the ease of even obtaining that loan should not be too tedious. So by doing that, it will encourage a lot of grown upcoming businesses to get that. And when you do that and those business thrive, employment grows. And employment grows, the effect on that alone, you see income on household, and then you can tell how the economy, the society as a whole would, and that would have an impact on them.
That's really good. I concur with you there. The government should partner with development banks, commercial banks, to be able to make access to loans to all these small, medium scale businesses and make it less tedious. So, Mr. David, what would you like to add to this? What we are going to look forward to, and how we can navigate this economic situation?
All right, very good point my colleague has mentioned. I think in terms of policies, I think we have to distance emotions from the kind of policies we make.
Yeah, true.
Because if you look at some sectors where inflation is so unnecessary and can be curbed by government policies, talking about the real estate sector or industry, the inflation there is unimaginable. When we talk about hitting rock bottom, what is the common man going to feel the most? How is it going to impact the common man the most?
Yeah.
Imagine the common man who is paying a house rent for 100,000 naira in the next 2 years or 1 year, due to where we're going, having to pay times 2 of that amount, or having to buy a piece of land for times 2 of the amount that it is right now. So I think government needed to set policies on real estate and manage the inflationary gap, in that sector, because
housing also affects the cost of your living.
Yeah, cost of living.
Yeah,
exactly. So talk about housing, talk about transportation. There are some key opportunities here that we need to talk about, the policies in those sectors. I think if government can, in a way, engage in that sector, talk about transportation. So Lagos State government, I think they're already thinking in the future, bringing in electric buses.
Okay.
Smart.
Okay. That was a smart move, because when we talk about removing subsidy, and then price of fuel is going to go high.
Yeah.
It means price of your fees of transporting people from point A to point B also go high. That means transport costs will go high.
Yes, definitely.
So I think the plan of the government there, was a smart one, and we need more
ideas like this. And
like that. So we can curb those industries. Just those industries, we can begin to set policies down in those industries that can just help a bit, easing, because where we're going to is a very, very tight place, and we need to work on those things that matter the most. That everybody engaged in me coming here, I have to use transportation one way or the other. I must have a place to live.
Yeah.
I must eat. You know.
Food, yeah.
Yeah. So all those things that are basic, we need to really watch them. We need to watch them. Like agriculture, we need to watch it.
So I agree with you the most. I agree with you 100%. There are some of the causes of inflation in this country are quite unnecessary, and they're as a result of bad economic policies, bad monetary policies, and the rest, right? Like the transportation sector, the housing sector, the agricultural sector. Just few policies will set that thing right.
Exactly.
Enabling people, like you said, enabling people to have easy access to industrial loans, and setting up businesses, making it easy, even set up educational symposium that would educate people on how to go about these businesses and make it affordable for them to be able to attend business schools. You know, there are so many empowering programs that can be done, and with the right knowledge and applying it in the proper manner, it's going to really help us in navigating our way out of this negative economic climate. I want to appreciate you guys so much for being here on this segment. Like we said, this is business, finance, and all the confession there is to it. On our next segment, we'll be talking about different aspects of finance, businesses, how to take advantage of loans, how to invest your money, how to be able to set your personal finances, like you talked about, set it right. So once again, Mr. David, Mr. Patrick, I want to thank you so much for coming. See you guys next time.
Thank you very much.
All right, guys.